Imagine a tiny volcanic island, just 8 square miles of black sand and rock. Far out in the Pacific Ocean, it doesn't look like much, but in early 1945, this island, Iwo Jima, became one of the most fiercely contested pieces of land in human history. Why? Because for the United States, it was a crucial stepping stone. Its airfields were vital for launching long-range B-29 bomber escorts and providing an emergency landing spot for damaged planes returning from raids on Japan. For the Japanese Empire, it was sacred soil, a part of the homeland itself, and they were prepared to defend it to the last man. This wasn't just another island battle. It was a brutal clash of wills that would redefine the meaning of sacrifice and victory. The story of Iwo Jima is a harrowing tale of courage, desperation, and the terrible, terrible price of war. The American plan, Operation Detachment, seemed straightforward on paper. 3 Marine divisions, over 70,000 men, would land on the southeastern beaches and sweep across the island in a matter of days. They had overwhelming naval and air superiority. The island was bombarded for weeks leading up to the invasion. From offshore, it looked like Iwo Jima had been pulverized, that nothing could have survived. But the Americans were stepping into a masterfully prepared trap. The Japanese commander, Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kurabayashi, was a brilliant and ruthless strategist. He knew he couldn't win a conventional fight on the beaches. So, he turned the entire island into a fortress, not on the surface, but underneath it. For months, his 21,000 soldiers had dug an intricate network of tunnels, over 11 miles in total, connecting hundreds of hidden pillboxes, bunkers, and artillery positions. These weren't just simple tunnels. They were multi-level defensive systems, complete with barracks, command centers, and hospitals, all buried deep within the volcanic rock. Kurabayashi's orders were stark and absolute. There would be no surrender. Each soldier was to kill 10 Americans before they themselves were killed. They were to fight from their hidden positions until the very end, making the invaders pay for every single inch of ground with blood. The pre-invasion bombardment, as intense as it was, had barely scratched the surface of this subterranean fortress. On the morning of February 19, 1945, the first wave of Marines hit the beaches. The initial moments were deceptively quiet. The Japanese held their fire, luring the Americans ashore, letting the beaches become crowded with men and equipment. Then, all at once, Kurabayashi unleashed hell. From hundreds of hidden, interlocking positions, machine guns, mortar, and artillery opened up, creating a murderous crossfire. The beach, made of soft volcanic ash, was a nightmare. Men and vehicles sank into it, unable to move or dig for cover. It was, as one Marine described it, like trying to run in a bucket of loose wheat. The casualties were staggering from the very first hour. The carefully laid plans dissolved into a chaotic, brutal struggle for survival. The Marines were pinned down, fighting not just a visible enemy, but a ghost in the machine, an island that was itself a weapon. The primary objective for the first day was Mount Suribachi, the 550-foot dormant volcano at the southern tip of the island. It was a natural fortress, honeycombed with Japanese defenses, its summit offering a commanding view of the entire island, especially the landing beaches. For 4 agonizing days, the 28th Marine Regiment fought its way up the mountain's steep, treacherous slopes. Every cave, every crevice, every pillbox had to be taken out one by one, often in brutal close quarters combat with flamethrowers and grenades. The Japanese defenders fought with suicidal bravery, refusing to surrender even when their positions were overrun. Finally, on the morning of February 23rd, a small patrol reached the summit. They raised a small American flag, a moment of triumph amidst the carnage. A few hours later, a second larger flag was brought up. Associated Press photographer Joe Rosenthal was there to capture this moment. His photograph of 6 men raising the flag on Mount Suribachi would become one of the most iconic images of the entire war, a powerful symbol of American unity and determination. It was a beacon of hope, but for the men on the island, the battle was far from over. In fact, the fighting for Suribachi, as brutal as it was only the beginning. The main Japanese forces were dug into the northern part of the island. In a nightmarish landscape the Marines would come to call the meat grinder, This northern plateau was a maze of jagged rocks, ridges, and canyons, all fortified. Places with names like the Amphitheater, Turkey Knob, and Hill 382 would be forever etched in the memories of the survivors. Here, the fighting devolved into a slow, grinding, yard-by-yard advance. Progress was measured in feet, not miles. The Japanese used their tunnel network to perfection. Marines would clear a pillbox only to have Japanese soldiers emerge from a hidden tunnel behind them to attack again. The psychological toll was immense. The enemy was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The noise was constant, the roar of artillery, the chatter of machine guns, the screams of the wounded. The air was thick with the smell of sulfur from the volcanic soil and the stench of death. It was a war of attrition at its most savage. American superiority and firepower was often negated by the terrain and the enemy's tactics. It came down to small groups of men, armed with rifles, flamethrowers, and demolition charges, crawling forward to take out one enemy position at a time. The courage displayed was almost unbelievable. Medal of Honor citations from Iwo Jima read like epic tales of heroism, with men single-handedly charging machine gun nests or sacrificing themselves to save their comrades. But for every hero, there were dozens of casualties. The battle consumed men at an alarming rate. Entire companies were wiped out and replaced, only to be decimated again. The island became a charnel house. By early March, the Japanese defensive lines were finally beginning to crack under the relentless pressure, but they did not break. General Kuribayashi, from his final command post deep underground, maintained control and urged his men to fight on. On the night of March 25th, long after the island had been declared secure, Kuribayashi led a final, desperate attack. Several hundred Japanese soldiers, including Kuribayashi himself, emerged from their caves for a last suicidal charge against an American airfield camp. The fighting was chaotic and hand-to-hand in the darkness. By morning, it was over. The last organized resistance on Iwo Jima had been crushed. The battle, which was supposed to last a week, had raged for 36 days. The cost was astronomical. Out of the 21,000 Japanese defenders, almost all were killed. Only about 200 were taken prisoner, many of whom were too wounded to resist. The American casualties were equally horrific. Over 26,000 Marines were killed or wounded, making Iwo Jima the only battle in Marine Corps history where American casualties outnumbered the Japanese. Nearly 7,000 Americans made the ultimate sacrifice for that small piece of rock. The number of medals of honor awarded for the battle, 27 in total, speaks to the extraordinary intensity of the fighting. It was a victory, but a victory purchased at a terrible, terrible price. So, was it worth it? This is a question historians have debated ever since. In the immediate aftermath, the answer seemed to be yes. The airfields on Iwo Jima were repaired and put to use. By the end of the war, over 2,200 B-29 bombers had made emergency landings on the island, saving the lives of nearly 24,000 airmen. From that perspective, the sacrifices of the Marines on the ground saved thousands of their comrades in the air. However, critics point out that the island's strategic value as a fighter escort base was less critical than originally thought. The battle for Iwo Jima stands as a grim preview of what an invasion of the Japanese mainland would have looked like. A vision of bloodshed so terrifying that it played a role in the decision to use the atomic bomb. Ultimately, the legacy of Iwo Jima is complex. It's a story of strategic necessity, but also of underestimation and unforeseen horror. It's a testament to the incredible bravery of the men who fought there, on both sides. But most of all, it is a stark and brutal reminder of the true cost of war. As Fleet Admiral Chester Nimitz said, among the Americans who served on Iwo Island, uncommon valor was a common virtue. The black sands of Iwo Jima absorbed the blood of heroes and became a sacred ground, a symbol not just of victory, but of the profound and heartbreaking price that must be paid for it.